Hello, we're ready to start Chapter 9, which is just really an introduction to functions and what they are. And so, to begin with, we're going to look at some vocab, and then we're going to look at some relations that may or may not be functions. So what I'd suggest for this first matching exercise with vocab is to go through these and see if you can guess correctly, or maybe you just know from your past experiences. And then so pause the video and see if you can fill in these blanks with the bold words up here, and then I'll go through them. So go ahead and do that. And alright, so I'll go through them. So the blank of relation is a set of second components, or the y values of an ordered pair. That would be the range. So we call the set of second components, usually that's the y values, we call that set the range of the relation. Okay. A blank is a set of ordered pairs of real numbers. Well, that's just a relation. If we want a function, we have to get more specific than that, and we'll talk about that in a second. 3, if the quantity y depends on x, then y is called the independent. Or no, what is it? Dependent, right? If y depends on x, then y is definitely the dependent variable. Most of the time, y is the dependent variable. It depends on what x is. So a lot of times we plug in x to find y, right? So y depends on x. Number 4, the blank of a relation is the set of first components, the domain. The domain is the word we use to identify the set of first components in a relation. A blank is the set of ordered pairs in which each value of the first component corresponds to exactly one value of the second component. This would be the function. So a function is a relation, but it has this special criteria that any x can only correspond to exactly one y. And then 6, if the function y depends on x, then we call x the independent variable. Most of the time in mathematics, x is the independent variable, y is the dependent variable. Alright, so number 7, let's see. We're going to look at some relations in different forms and try to determine if, we're going to give the domain and range, we're told to do that, right? And then we're asked to determine if they are functions. So this first one, let's see our domain. I'm going to use capital D to represent domain, capital R to represent range. Domain is all the x values, or the first components, right? So it's a set of all the x's. Here we have 5 for an x-coordinate, 3, we have 1, and we have -1. The range is all the y values. So we have a set with all the y values, 2, -1, -3, and -5. Alright, so that's our domain and range. Is it a function? So the question to ask yourself is there any x value that gets repeated so that it's paired with two different y values? So does 5 show up anywhere else paired with something other than 2? It does not. Does 3 show up anywhere else paired with something other than -1? It does not. Does the x value of 1 show up anywhere else paired with something other than -3? Nope. Does -1 show up anywhere else as an x value paired with something other than -5? And it does not, right? Each x value is paired with only one y value, which means this is a function. One way to represent a function is with a set of ordered pairs, and that's what we have here. So another way to represent a relation or a function is with a table, right? So it's like a t-chart. We have x's, we have y's. The pairings are 1, 3, 2, -1, -1, 4, and 1, 4. So the question is, what's the domain and range, and is this a function? So I'll use capital D for domain, capital R for range again. Domain is all the x values, so we have 1, 2, -1, and 1 shows up again. I don't have to list it twice. That would be redundant. We just have to list those 3 different items that show up. Range, we have 3, -1, 4, and 4 shows up twice. We don't need to list it twice. That would be redundant. In fact, MyLab may count you wrong if you list something twice that does not need to be listed twice. So, domain, range. Is this a function? Can we find an x value that's paired with 2 different y values? And if so, then it's not a function. It is a relation, just not a function. So, I like to look for an x value. Sorry. Hopefully that's not the Rona. Alright, so we look for an x value that's paired with 2 different y values. And we have one of those, right? 1 is paired with 3, but 1 is also paired with 4. So these 2 points, 1, 3 and 1, 4, make this so that it's not a function. Not a function. And it's not a function specifically because of those 2 guys right there. Alright? So now we look at the last one. This is another way to represent a relation and sometimes functions with what we call a mapping diagram. So each item in this first set is mapped onto an item in the second set, right? So first let's start talking about the domain and range. Let's see. Domain is everything in the first set. So that would be your A, B, C, D, E. A, B, C, D, E. Range, everything in the second set. V, W, X, Y, Z. And then the question becomes, is this a function? It is definitely a pairing set of ordered pairs. We have A, V is an ordered pair, B, X is an ordered pair, D, W is an ordered pair, and E, X is an ordered pair, right? So is this a function? Well, can we find an item in the first set? We think of these as our X's and these as our Y's. Can we think of an item in the first set, or for an X component, that is paired with 2 different Y's? So let's see. Let's see. A is only paired with V, B is only paired with X, C is only paired with Z, D is only paired with W, and E is only paired with X. So this is a function. Now this is an example of something that can be confusing for people, because some students will look at this X over here and say, well, X goes with 2 different components in the first set. X goes with B, X goes with E. But X is a Y value, and a function doesn't say anything about 2 Y, or a single Y paired with 2 different X's. What we're concerned with is if 2 different X's, or if a single X is paired with 2 different Y's, and that doesn't happen. So it's okay to have a point like E. I mean, if we look at ordered pairs, we have an ordered pair E, X, right? And we have another ordered pair, which is BX. And that's okay for being a function, because we don't have the same X paired with 2 different Y values. We have the same Y paired with 2 different X values, and that's okay. So this is still a function. So we'll stop with this page here, and we'll move on to the next page on your next video.